Behind the Thread features honest, unscripted conversations with leaders who are willing to go beyond the highlight reel. This podcast brings together business leaders, founders, and change makers to discuss leadership, wellness, and life. We'll explore the logic behind decisions, the impact leadership has on the body and mind, and the habits that help leaders stay grounded, resilient, and real. If you're interested in learning how leaders actually think, live, and lead, this is where the real story unfolds. Let's take a peek behind the thread. Hi, I'm Carrie Habel. I am the co-founder and the managing partner of Thread Advisory Group, and I am here with Mr. Scott Kerby, and we are on our part 2 episode of Behind the Thread. So welcome back.
Excited to be here for part 2.
I know. And we look a little ridiculous, but, tell us what these are.
We like ridiculous on a good day. We've got some purple eye masks on today.
I know. I love this.
In case we need a little beauty nap.
Yeah, we need a little snooze, just kind of midway. All right. Well, are we going to keep these on all day?
Probably not.
No, we've got, just for those of you who can't see the video, we actually have little sleep masks on our foreheads just for fun. So we've got to do a little advertising for purple.
There you go.
Yeah. So if you, for those of the listeners who maybe didn't see the part 1 episode, I'll take that off too. We talked a little bit about the experiential retail. We talked about some fundamentals of retail, and we talked a little bit about purple. So, but for those of you who didn't see episode 1, we recommend that you do. However, wanted to just give you an opportunity just to share a little bit about your background. If you could just kind of walk us through your career journey in retail.
Absolutely. So I have been super fortunate to have a decades-long retail career.
A couple decades, yes.
A couple decades.
Mm-hmm.
So I started out when I was young at the Bon Marché on the West Coast,
How
which
old
was
were you?
a killer department store that became Macy's.
Yeah.
And I was pretty young, so I was still in high school.
Yeah.
But worked there through high school, college. And funny thing was, the store that I worked in college in Moscow, Idaho, I then later became the store manager of. So kind of a full circle moment.
Yeah, love that.
So I was at Macy's or the Bon Marché for 10 years. I then went to L Brands and had various roles from field to office to Canada to international. And I was there for about 20 years, which was super exciting.
I can't believe it was 20 years.
I know.
Really?
Isn't that amazing?
Crazy.
Totally. And then after that, I have had some really fun experiences. I did 3 years at Sephora Canada. It was during COVID, which was a little bit crazy, seeing stores close and then reopen and get back in the game. And then I've been at Purple now for 3.5 years, which has been a really fun experience that I, never saw in my future, and have had a ton of fun trying to take, a mattress store and turn it into a really killer retail experience.
Yeah, exactly. Which you have done that, and you should be very proud of all the work that you've done at Purple, because it's an amazing experience.
The beginning.
And yeah, I know, it's fantastic. But great people, you've got great teams, and you've got great leaders. And so that's really what part 2 is really going to be about, is leadership. And so I'm just curious, the Scott Kerby from way back in the day when you jumped right into retail, how is he different than the Scott Kerby today?
I don't think very different.
Yeah.
Right. I have always stood for, a few fundamentals and great talent, and having the right people in the business makes all the difference. Yeah. So I don't think that I'm all that different over the years. Hopefully I am a little bit more focused and, weed out some of the clutter along the way in a better way. But I think, at my core, I still have the same beliefs around, great people move the business.
Yeah. I remember when I worked for you too, like that focus on people and great leaders, because we know, and we talked in the last episode around, the fundamentals and, driving sales in general. But really we didn't touch on the leadership piece. And that is so important, is great leaders. And that's one of the things that you taught me from the very beginning, is like, you've got to get the right people in the right place at the right time. But it really is those leadership fundamentals, and really making sure that you hire great leaders.
And great leaders attract great leaders.
Absolutely.
Right. It's amazing as I spend time in stores, and store leaders want to learn how to recruit. And recruiting is something you do naturally.
Yeah.
Right. You either walk them all and make friends or you don't. And, I remember 100 years ago when I was a district manager in Seattle, and I probably went for 2 years without doing an interview, right? Just because I had people that I wanted to be on my team or wanted to be on my team.
Right.
And, if you're doing a great job of attracting and surrounding yourself with killer people,
Absolutely.
right? They just flock together.
Absolutely. And you are a great leader, as I have mentioned to you many times, and have been just a mentor to me. And I think you attract great leaders, like you had mentioned. Like great leaders attract great leaders to work for them. So that's
it makes it fun.
Yeah, that's the key difference.
It's like assembling a great dinner party.
Yeah.
Right? You want a cast of characters at your table to make it interesting. And, great. I'm in, retail where we sell.
Right.
And the best sellers are, always an interesting bunch.
Yes.
And, they're the group that you want to move your business.
Absolutely, 100%. So if a store manager from 1990 walked into, it could be any brand, but it could, let's just say it's Purple. I guess what is the differences from like 1990 to today? What are the differences that you look for?
I just think that there's so much more technology, in retail today than there was in 1990 that, you have to be able to navigate it and make it enhance or support what you do versus get in the way.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really the difference. Yeah. Product is still product. Great stores are still great stores.
Right.
You have to have probably a better point of view than you did in the 90s, but a great experience is still
probably
great.
Have a little bit more results. You can see more reporting and things like that. A little more in the moment types of things. I remember when I was at Estee Lauder, we got our reporting in terms of our sales, I think at the end of the month from all the different retailers. And I think back to that. It's like we had to really focus just on the behaviors because we didn't see the results. We didn't see them until, well after the fact. So it was harder to kind of respond in the moment.
But you think about your Lauder days, right? And the Zodiac Compact.
Yeah.
Right? So having a key item. I have a whole
collection still.
I'm sure, right? It was a great product.
Right.
But having a real focus for your team to go after makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And, that's where I learned how to have a few key items that your team chases. Yep. And it's a game changer. And the Zodiac Compact was one of those items.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Only I would remember that from that far back.
I know, exactly. So one of the things that, so we've been partnering a little bit in the course of the last year since I co-founded Thread Advisory Group. One of those things, because you had said, I really am looking for some leadership programming, coaching programming. So we worked together and we built out a high-performance coaching framework for Purple. Started with the district managers, roll it out to the showroom managers. Now it's being rolled out as we speak, I think, to the assistant showroom managers. So can you just share a little bit around why did you think that was needed? And then what are you seeing as the benefits of implementing that?
So what I love about Thread and the work you guys are doing is, you're able to step into a company quickly and assess the business, assess the organization, and then help put together a plan to make a difference. And in small companies, and, I still consider the Purple retail stores kind of in startup mode, right? We've got less than 100 stores, we're growing, we're adding stores to the business, but our team that supports the retail side of the business is really small, and it will be for a number of years.
Right.
So having a resource like you and your team that can help put together learning materials, training materials, coaching materials that help grow talent and move the business is just critical. Yeah. And we couldn't do it ourselves. And so it has been really fun working with you and Anna and the team to help bring it to life.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun, for sure. And we've been able to create that kind of high performance coaching framework, which then drives some consistency in how people lead and things like that. We even threw out a little AI tool. So I know that
your AI videos are great.
I know, got some AI videos. So we'll throw a little technology in. But I think it's really important to have that consistency. We learned that at L Brands, for sure, that consistency and ask versus tell and really focusing on some key coaching principles and things I think is really important.
Totally. And I think it's been fun having you and Anna work on, several pieces of the business. So, what started out as development for the district managers, quickly moved into, how could we incorporate you guys into our brand conference and our annual national meeting, right? Which then has led into, as we're growing stores, having talent ready to go to run stores is important.
Yes.
So, you cooked up an assistant manager program so that we're able to then grow internally to help support the future. And the journey's been fun.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we started with the district managers building that framework. And then you had really said, I need to do a leadership program for those assistant showroom managers. Tell us why, though. Why did you want to start there? Because we started with the framework for the district managers, but creating an in-training program for those assistant showroom managers. Why was that the place that you wanted to start?
So we have all experienced in retail, or it could really be in any type of business where, you move from one level to the next and somebody saw something in you that there's a spark that you're now going to get promoted. And typically what happens is somebody throws you the keys and says, good luck.
Right.
Right.
We've all had that experience.
We've all been there. And so, to improve our likelihood of success, if we could equip our team so that they're really ready for that next level role, it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And frankly, there's not tons of opportunity for promotion in a small organization. And so the more meaningful work and or development and investment in your team really keeps them engaged in the business and or their careers.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we just launched that, but so far going well.
So far, really well.
Yeah, good. So as part of that program, we also introduced, and at your brand conference, we introduced thread types for all the showroom managers. And so there's 4 different thread types. So it's an assessment for those of you who don't know what thread types is. It's a leadership assessment. And it's sort of like a Myers-Briggs, but it's targeted to retail.
Right.
So we've got the four different styles of leadership.
Do I need to stand up and do the challenger move?
I was just going to ask you to. So we've got the visionary, which is this one. We've got the guide, which is the heart. We've got the builder, building things. And then we've got the challenger. And you are a challenger, right?
That's just because I'm impatient.
Is that why? Is
totally.
That why? Oh, interesting. So, but is there anything that you learned from being kind of having that assessment and, your type as a challenger, anything that you learned about yourself throughout that?
I would say, I want to step back for a second.
Yeah.
I would say the importance of doing the work, though, is really about how to interact with people.
Yeah.
Right. And understanding and even being able to assess people that maybe haven't gone through thread types.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
And so, if you have somebody that's a builder that's working with a challenger, they're going to come at it from 2 different perspectives.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's really important to just help build confidence in your team and how they're taking stuff on and interacting with people.
Yeah, exactly. That's truly the key of thread types. First, it's about knowing yourself. What are your strengths? What are the opportunities? And then truly it is about assessing other people and seeing the differences. So if they are a builder, and for me, I'm a guide, so I know I need to change my communication and my coaching, specifically to that individual. And so there's a lot of little cues that you can pick up on to kind of identify what type everybody is. But it's really important because like you had said, coming from 2 different angles, there's so much miscommunication out there, just lack of alignment. And so if you really understand the people on your team and what style they are, you can adapt that communication.
We're perfect together because you're charting the course and I'm saying, can we go faster?
Exactly. That's always how it's been.
Totally.
Give me more. Well, that's been really fun to do the thread types with your team. And I think they had a lot of fun at the brand conference.
I promise they did.
Yeah. They've been talking a lot about it. So it's been really fun. So we had talked a little bit about the Purple Pathways and that's for the assistant showroom managers that we just built that in training program. What do you see for your showroom managers? What do you see for your district managers? I'm going to pitch my own work here. So what do you see programs like that in the future for those audiences?
Absolutely. I think that, having learning resources to help every level is really important.
Yeah, for sure.
And, we're a little bit under-resourced in putting those together today.
Yeah.
And, I think that there's an opportunity as we continue to grow and build.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to put you on the spot for a second.
It's important though, right? You owe it to people when they sign up to work for you that you're going to support their growth and development.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd really rather them go somewhere else where they can get that.
Absolutely. If you think back to like your career in retail, is there anything that stands out to you in terms of leadership programming or anything like that really stood out and like changed you as a leader?
Yeah, I think that L Brands was really a great organization to be a part of. And there was a program, if you will, that was really alive in the company around culture shaping, right? The L Brands Way, which was really a spinoff on old Sid Delaney work. Yeah. But, it was an absolute financial commitment, a time commitment, a resource commitment for the organization.
Right.
And, the stand was that everybody, at the district manager level and up was a part of it. And then it creates common language and ways to interact and break down barriers and move performance. But, it was meaningful for me. And I would like to do more of that work. Yeah. Within my business. And,
I would say that was for sure part of the things that stand out to me. And I still reference those. I know you do too. Be here now. We're being here now.
We are.
Right. Where are you at in the accountability ladder right now? Are you grateful?
I think that I am super high on the accountability ladder right now.
Yep. Or the mood elevator. Sorry. The mood elevator and the accountability ladder, I think. So high on both.
High on both.
Yeah.
Yeah. The mood elevator, is really about, the quality of your thinking, is going to dictate the quality of what you're going to do.
Yeah. It's so true though, right? Like I think about that often. I did a little meditation this morning to make sure I was in a positive mindset. And that's really important. When you can think about where you're at, what's kind of fueling you right now and being grateful for, the opportunity. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to talk with you today. And so I just kind of thought about that. It's fun to be with you. Yeah, for sure. Always. All right. We talked about the showroom, the assistant showroom manager program. If you could give one piece of advice to an emerging leader who wants to advance their career, what would it be?
So think back to when you were young in your career and those people that moved the furthest, the fastest, right? It was hunger. It was drive. It was, at 3:35 an hour, you were showing up 30 minutes early for your shift. Yeah. If it was a midnight sales event in December, you were the person that was there at the start of the day that closed the store down at night and you were excited about it.
Right.
And I think that young people today, not to age myself, right, but grew up in a different era. Right. When you and I grew up, we, rode bikes in the neighborhood. We, built forts. Our parents said in the summer, go outside and see the world.
Exactly. Don't come back until it's dinner time.
Right. Come back when it's dark. Right. And, my son's generation grew up on iPhones and iPads and, they didn't get the same experience.
For sure.
And, so I think that it's just really important to lean in and those that do in the biggest way will always be successful.
Yeah, for sure. I think about that grit and that drive. So when I think back to some of my early career moments, like there was a moment when I worked in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I lived in Minneapolis. So I drove 90 miles every day to work because I wanted that first manager role at Macy's or at Marshall Field, Dayton's, I think it was back in the day. Dayton's, Macy's, or Marshall Fields. It was one of those. But I drove, 90 miles one way because I wanted that role so much.
And you were so excited.
I know, I was.
And that first day when you showed up in that store, you were so nervous.
Right. I I know, but I do think back, and I unfortunately, I feel like we've lost a little bit of that. No, I don't want to say it's one particular generation or another. I think it's just more of the environment that we've created in our lives right now.
Completely agree.
Yeah. There's just so many things moving.
I would say, though, I have so many young people in my stores that are just brilliant.
Yeah.
And, it's still there, but, it's a different era.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So when your career is all over, which won't be anytime soon, right? You're in this for the long haul.
For the long haul.
For the long haul. But when it is over, what do you hope people will say about the impact that you've had on them as their leader?
Yeah, I hope that they will say that I was invested in them. They learned something from me. It may not have always been easy. Hopefully I was, appropriate, polite, professional, but I would like for people to say they learned something.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
You think about great leaders that you've worked for or worked with, right? And just the, how they made you feel along the way is just so important.
And sometimes
we've all worked for the opposite too.
I was just going to say that. So we've also worked for the opposite. And I know that I've shared this story with you. You were there in the moment when we had a leader who will rename nameless, I should say. And we were in a store visit, and I was very nervous. It was my very first store visit, and it was a big corporate visit. So we've got a lot of people there. And I felt like I did okay in the visit, but certainly was nervous. And then at the end, we recapped. And what had happened was got some good feedback from you, good feedback from a couple others. And then one of the senior leaders had said to me, my feedback for you is that I want you to wear a turtleneck, which might be why I'm wearing a turtleneck now, because it always stays with me. Because my neck was all red and it was blotchy, and because I was so nervous. And so I'll never forget that moment, because I was humiliated. I was embarrassed. I wanted to quit. I mean, it was horrible to have a senior leader say something like that to me and call me out in front of all of these people. And, it was such a profound moment for me, but I just thought, I'm never going to treat anybody like that.
You will always remember that moment.
Yes, I really will.
Right.
Do you have a moment like that?
I think I have lots of them. And frankly, I've learned a lot from, tough experiences. But, I would also say there's so many great leaders out there. And, I think a great example in retail is Mickey Drexler, who I have not worked for, but you hear the stories of young people that worked for him and how he touched them or taught them something and how they remember it decades later.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. Such a profound, or so many moments that I would say that are so profound that I've heard. I've never worked for him either, but have heard just wonderful moments.
Right.
So, yeah, a lot of people have been influenced by him in a big way. All right, we've only got a couple minutes left, so we got to play the this or that.
Fantastic.
So my first question is coach or mentor?
How about both?
Both.
So you think about a coach, right? Think about a basketball game. The coach is in that game as much as the players, running up and down the sidelines, right? And they're a part of it.
Right.
Coaches, great coaches coach to improve. And mentors, I think, is a little bit of extra credit, where I'm typically more of a mentor to, a friend,
others,
somebody outside of the business, or it could be somebody in the business, working for a different function.
Sure.
But I think that there's a need for both. They're both really important.
Who has been your best mentor?
I'm not going to name names, but I've had great partners in my career that have been great to me, and some that have been really tough on me where I needed it.
Right. And you grow from both. You absolutely grow from both.
But great experiences.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
There's lots of people. My career would not have gone nearly as far without having just great people along the way.
Right. Absolutely. All right, next one is potential or performance. Going back to the 9-box grid.
Yeah, we're getting ready for a talent review in DC.
Yeah.
In the next month, and I think that doing the work is meaningful and important, and you can never stop.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it all comes down to performance.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, honestly, that's one of the lessons learned for me, because I think in the past, like long ago, I would look at people's potential and not necessarily looking at their performance. So I would coach to their potential, whether that be like a new role. I think of one of the store managers a long time ago at Bath and Body Works, and I coached her to her potential. And she wasn't performing in her current role.
Right.
And so when she got that role, she failed because she really hadn't proven through her performance. And so I think there's some really good lessons in that. So I think there's a mixture of both for sure, but you've got to be able to really focus on the performance.
Yeah. And it's really easy for people to get hung up on where they want to go,
right,
and then screw up what they're doing today 100%. So they never get there.
100%. Absolutely. All right. How about promote from within or hire externally?
From within every day, all day long.
Right.
And your best performers come from within.
Yep.
You know, in retail, there's about a 90% turnover rate with external hires in the first year. And so the more that you can, grow people, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah.
And frankly, the lower your turnover is going to be.
Absolutely. Well, you always invest in your people, like whether it's programs or just, everybody, everybody by name. And people always say that you remember them. You might have visited a store, one store one time, and you remember people's names. Like they shared that with me. A couple people actually shared that with me the last time I was with your team.
I just think I've been super fortunate to have really great people on my team. But, I was talking to my boss this morning, my leader, and he's like, "Where are you?" And I said I was in Phoenix, and had a great day yesterday. And, my business has been a little bit up and down over the last couple of weeks. And, anytime I want to figure out the business, I need to just go stand in stores and talk to the team and ask them for their perspective. And I learn far more from them than they ever do from me.
100%. Yep. All right. How about one great hire or 10 good hires?
Great all day long.
Great.
Right.
Rather have great. Yeah.
I'd rather grow great than hire great.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
Average, kind of makes you crazy.
Yeah. Can I just ask you, just as a follow-up to that question, what are some of the key characteristics or traits that you really look for, whether it's internal or external, in a great leader?
Hunger, drive, passion for the business. Mediocre never cuts it.
Right.
And, it's one of those things that you can hire for attitude and train to perform. Yeah. But, people that are successful, there's an ingredient in them. Sometimes it's tough to put your finger on it. Yeah. But there's a sparkle, there's a level of drive, professional maturity.
Yeah. Yep, for sure. Agree with all of those. All right, last question. Trust your gut or follow the data?
A little bit of both. So I think if you're going to be a great merchant, there's a piece that has to come from your gut and then back it up with the numbers where, both matter. The numbers will tell you a story and it's important, right? You have to have data, but you also, need to have a level of curiosity that your gut will help drive.
Right. I think you taught me about that, or had mentioned once a long time ago about Blink, the book Blink, and just being, do you have anything that you want? I know that was one of the books that you really
love
enjoyed.
The Blink story.
Yeah.
Every day customers come in our business and it's a moment of truth, right? It's either a good experience or it's a bad experience. I was just at Starbucks down the street and it was the most professional, organized Starbucks I have been in years.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
And that is a moment of truth. That's a Blink moment.
Right.
Retailers are always famous for saying, when you go on store visits, go in the back and go in the bathroom. And that will tell you everything you need to know about the store manager.
Right.
And I think it's true. Right. If there's dust on the letters outside of a store, you know how that store is being run.
Yeah.
And those are all moments of truth.
Right.
And you can't plan for them. You can't do them over.
Right.
But it's really more about what the customer sees and experiences than anything else.
Absolutely. Is there any other books right now or podcasts that you're either listening to or watching right now?
So I'm not a huge fan of all of the professional workbooks because, I think that you read the first chapter and you're done.
Yeah.
I would still go back to a few. We're talking about talent. I think the talent pipeline is really important. As people succeed in their career, it comes from building a great foundation.
Right.
And if you don't do that, you won't go anywhere or you'll crash. And so, I think it's super important.
Yeah. I like that. I noticed that you were using that within your team, so I pulled mine out and started referencing
Dusted
that
it
again.
off.
And yeah, I was like, there's some really good stuff in here.
There's a great section in there on performance.
Yeah, right. Right. All right. Well, our time is actually up. It's time for us to take our little snooze now, I guess. It's
Fantastic. Sleep mask going back on.
I know. Yeah, exactly. But I'm so grateful again, just for having you a part of our episode 1 and 2, our 2-part episode here.
Thanks for including me. It was super fun.
It was so fun. And I think there's definitely going to be more opportunity for us to do some things like this again. So thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Until our next thread.
Deal.